Hey there, have you been wondering how to leverage Airtable for your business but just haven't had time to figure it out? My name is Andrew Dodds, I'm co-founder at SimpleStack, and today we are bringing you the ultimate beginner's guide to Airtable, which will show you how to use Airtable for just about anything in your business. Now we're going to be looking at this through the eyes of a project manager building a project management tool, because that's a great way to learn projects and tasks and all those great things. And I'm so excited that you're here for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, who's this for? Well, whether you're completely new to Airtable and you have seen nothing, or you've been using Airtable for a while and you just want to brush up or learn more about the fundamentals and capabilities, this is for you. And with that, we're going to jump into this thing, okay? So when you first create an Airtable account and log in, this is where you're going to be taken. This is your home screen. And on the left-hand side, you have workspaces. A workspace is a collection of what are called bases. That's what you see here in these little cards. They're just databases. They would be similar if you use spreadsheets a lot, and I'll be referring to that analogy as we go through here to kind of highlight the differences. They would be the same as a new spreadsheet, okay? And to create one, you're going to click this blue button called Create, and you're going to start with data. Now you can start with a template. We're not going to do that. And this is our empty base. So the very first thing we want to do is give it a name. We're going to call this the project tool. And that gives us a name. Now you'll see that we've got something here, a tab that says Table 1 with a few columns. Columns in Airtable are called fields, and they can have a type, meaning they can be drop-downs or users. You can write notes, check a box. There's a ton of different field types, and they're hugely important and valuable. Our first table is going to store our projects. So in a spreadsheet, you have tabs, right? And they don't really relate together. In Airtable, you have tables that hold information that is similar. So we're going to do a table for projects and a table for tasks. And then we're going to associate the tasks to the project that they're a part of. And we can do a lot of really great things there. And so that is what we're going to cover here in the next 20 or 30 minutes. So we're going to start with the projects table. We're going to call this projects. Best practice, always name your tables. I'm going to delete these fields because I want to show you sort of from scratch. Now this very first field is called a primary field. This is a common term in traditional databases as well. Now remember, Airtable is different than a spreadsheet because it's a relational database, and you get a lot of value out of that. It requires changing your sort of thinking a little bit, and we're going to learn that here today. A primary field needs to be unique, and so I'll show you how you can create a unique primary field, because if you had a project that was named the same or something like that, that can cause issues in the system. And you don't want that to ever be possible. And so I'll show you a quick trick for that. But first, let's get our basic fields in there. So we're definitely going to need a project name. That's going to be single line text. Okay. And that's looking pretty good. So let's say we want to create podcast. Let's do a project on revamp finance forecast tool, and let's have a project around create marketing campaign. So here we have some projects, and the next thing we want to do is give them a type. And a really good field for type when you want to specify sort of a selection of options is to use something called a single select, which allows you to create options in a drop-down and allow a user to select one. And so for us, let's do a project type. We're going to have a couple of things here. So we're going to have like a project type of marketing. We're going to have a project type of accounting. We'll have a project type of creative or production. Let's call it creative production. Okay, and so let's tag a few of these. So creative production, we're going to do accounting, and we're going to do marketing. Okay, so now we've got projects with types. Projects also will have due dates, so we can choose a field type of date, and that will allow us to select a date. So let's go ahead and select a few dates here. Let's do June, July, and August. Okay, this is starting to shape up pretty nicely so far. A project also very likely has a status that we're tracking, and we were gonna keep that simple using a single select field. Again, we're gonna just specify 3 options, which are gonna be to do, in progress, and done. And we're gonna change the colors so that it actually means something to the user, and there we are. Okay, so we're gonna give a few options here: to do, in progress, done. One of the things that happens a lot with projects is, how much longer till this is due, and making it easier for the user to understand that, and be able to track. Now you could look at the date and do the math between today, or you could use a formula to do that. So that's what we're gonna do. Days left. We're going to use a formula field. That's just another field type, and there is a formula that's called date time difference, and what this allows you to do is say, hey, look at the due date field, the date that's there, and what I want you to do is calculate the difference between that and today and give it to me in days, just like that. So that's going to return some days. Now you could have chose weeks, you could have chose months. That's your prerogative as you design the system, okay? So days left, we've got the project name. Okay, let's go back to this primary field. I told you it needs to be unique, right? And it's true, it does. One of the best ways to do that so that you're not having to figure it out is to create a formula that combines a couple of fields together, the information of a couple of fields together, so that it's always unique. We're just going to keep it really simple. We're going to combine the project name and the type together, so that that's just automatically calculated every time we create a new project. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now this uses a really fun formula. You probably use this formula more than any other. It's called the concatenate formula, and it just allows you to put text together. And you can sort of add space or characters in between the text. We're going to add a character. We're going to start with our project name. You'll see is that as you type, the field comes up. And then in quotes, you can provide a character to sort of separate them, and then you can bring in a second field. Now, again, you can concatenate as many fields as you want. We're just doing 2. So you see what that looks like now. Looks good. So that automatically will happen when we create new projects, and we're feeling pretty good about this. Let's take this one step further. Now you'll notice this is a very familiar sort of view of like this toolbar and spreadsheet view, right? So you can do things like hide fields if you don't want to see them. We're going to talk about building views in a moment. The hiding of the fields and the filtering and all of that really has to do with creating different views that you can come back to. But one of the other things you can do is you can sort just like you would on a spreadsheet, and so to me it makes sense to sort where the projects that are coming up soonest are going to be at the top. So I've done that. Okay. Now these statuses don't make a whole lot of sense. Let's reverse them, because it certainly wouldn't be in that order. Hopefully the one that's due soonest is in progress. Let's actually say done. Okay, so we reverse the order here. So we've got done, in progress, to do. We finished ahead of time for that top one. Okay, but let's take this one step further. We can actually conditionally color these records so that we get a little flag for things that we need to pay attention to. So up here, we're going to color the records, and we're going to go based on conditions. And I'm going to define a condition that is going to mark something as red. Okay? And that condition is going to be when days left, remember that formula we did, is less than 15 days. And you'll see in this case we have one project that's less than 15 days, so we get a little colored hashtag here. Okay, so that's nice. We'll be able to automatically tell what's coming up just by seeing that. Okay, so this is pretty good for the projects table. Now we want to create a task table to relate what we're working on, right? And so I'll go ahead and create that. We're going to click the plus up here, start from scratch. We're going to name it tasks. And we're going to start just with a clean slate. We're going to imagine that our tasks will always be unique, although that may not be the case in reality, but just for the sake of learning. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few tasks here. Okay, really original. And let's, instead of having a status for tasks, let's just have a checkbox that someone can check if it's done. Okay. What's cool about the checkbox field is you can change the style. So we're going to make it a green thumbs up. Let's give this a due date. So we're going to use a date field. Okay. For this, we're not going to do any sort of calculation. Okay, I'm just going to give them all the same date here for the sake of time. That looks pretty good. We can give it a notes field. So let's go ahead and pull in the long text field. Okay, so you could supply notes. And then the final thing, you may have beat me there in terms of thinking about it, is you need to be able to relate projects to this information. So you can do that with just another field type that's called a linked record. This is where your thinking is going to shift from a spreadsheet to a database. So we have the ability to relate information, and once that information is related together, we can access everything about that item. It'll make sense in a second. So we're going to choose to link to where we want to tag. This essentially creates a drop-down where I can tag a task as belonging to a project. Okay, so we're going to name this project. And you'll see now, X out of that, if I click that plus, I get my projects. So I'm going to say revamp the finance is for these three. I'm just going to go ahead and drag, since they're going to be the same. Revamp finance forecast tool. And then the last two I'm going to do on the podcast. Okay, so those have been linked. Here's what's really cool. Since they're linked, it's linked here. It's got a mirror on the other side showing the task name. Okay, so you'll notice that that primary field is what shows up in the tag, and that's why it's important that it's unique and tells you something of value. Okay, so we've got our task information here. This is really good. So let's look at the power of these links now. This is what it all comes down to. There is so much power here. I'm going to show you a few things really quick. Number one, I can use a field over here in the projects table. It's called a count field. Okay. And what it does is it just counts the number of linked records. And so you point it at the table that you want to count. And we're going to go ahead and click on Create Field. And you'll see that it gives us a count of the tasks that exist. So there's 3 tasks here. It gives us a 3. Now that is pretty cool. Additionally, for instance, if we were to mark a few of these as done, let's say one of those is done and one of these is done, we can do that same thing. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this field. This is going to be called Count Tasks Complete. And we can still just point it to the table, but we're going to only include linked records from the tables that meet certain conditions, and that is where done is checked. Now we get a different number between these two. Okay, so we have 1 complete for each of them. And with that information, we can then summarize the percentage complete for a project. That's really simple to do. percent complete. This is going to be a formula field. Okay, and we're just going to take the count that is complete over the total count of tasks, and that is going to be formatted as a percent, and we want to display that as a progress bar with its percent values in the context of a circle. So there you go. So now you've got this really nice view into the percentage complete. Now here is another thing. These little tags, by the way, you can click on them and it shows you the item from that table. So I could actually mark this task as done, not even go into the task table. And you'll see that it updates automatically the percentage of complete to 100%. So any update you make anywhere is updating everywhere. No longer going from tab to tab, re-updating, etc. Those days are over when you use Airtable. Okay. So this is the basic data foundations that you need. Now we're going to talk about automations. Okay, what are automations? Well, it's an area of the system that allows you to use a trigger and an action. A trigger would just be a condition like what is the category that was selected, or did something get updated? An action is what do you want to do when the trigger is true? So do you want to update another record? Do you want to send an email notification? It's really just an if-then little engine that saves and automates and scales your time. Okay? So let's think of a good one for projects here. Well, maybe we always want to have certain tasks when something is tagged as creative production. Maybe we want to automatically create those in the system. That would be pretty cool. And there's a variety of ways to do this. There's a more advanced way to do this from like a template, but we're going to do sort of the 1.0 version. There's a lot of options here. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to head over to the automation section, which is right here next to the data layer that we've been in this whole time. We're going to create a new automation. We're going to do that by first adding our trigger. So what do we want our trigger to be? Well, I think what it should be is we're going to say that whenever something is creative production, we want to have certain tasks created, okay? So that seems pretty good to me. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Now you've got a lot of different triggers that you can use. We're focusing on when a record matches conditions, and the condition is going to be from the projects table, right? Now the projects table has a bunch of different fields. Here they are. And so we're going to go based on when the type is creative production. So we have one record where that's the case, so we're going to choose that record for our testing data. Okay. So that's that. And when we choose creative production, we want to generate a set of tasks for creative production. Okay? Now, how could we do that? Well, one thing we could do is we could create you'll see there's all these great integrations and actions as well that you can use. For our purposes, we're going to want to create a task record, okay? And where are we going to create that? We want to create it in the task table, right? Because that's where our tasks live. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and choose the field, which is going to be the name. So let's say every time we have a creative production task, we have a creative production task that gets created, okay? Every time someone selects creative production in the project, the creative production task is created, okay? So that seems pretty straightforward, right? So let's go ahead and turn this on, and I'll show you how this works. So I'm going to go back to projects, and let's imagine we're creating a new one. A new creative project. Okay. And I'm going to give that a type of creative production. And you'll see that over here, we're going to get that new creative production task to create. But you'll see it's not associated with the project. And so what you have the ability to do in an automation is to say, hey, I have a linked record field in that task table called project. And when you create it, I want you to take the record ID. Airtable stores a record ID for every record that's ever created. And we're basically saying, when you have a project that triggers this, look at the record ID and tag it in that field so that it's associated to my project. Okay, watch what happens now when we do this. Another creative project. When this becomes creative production, watch right here in the tasks. There it is. It's linked to this project. On the other side, take a look, it's linked. So this is really good, right? Now, you might be thinking, well, what if I have multiple tasks that I want to create? Well, you use the same idea. It's a little more of an advanced sort of tactic, but you basically have a table that acts as your template, that has a list of the tasks that you want to create, and then you have the automation go find that. I did a video on it. Feel free to go take a look at that. It could be really helpful if you want to explore further. This is the basic way to create and have an automation do something, okay? Now, there are much more advanced things that you can do with conditional logic or repeating groups where you're running the same action over and over again. Running the same action over and over again, if you're wanting to generate multiple tasks, is what you would do. And you have to select an input list. So that template that I was mentioning is what you would go look at, use as the list here to create the records, okay? That's a different topic entirely. Okay? But for now, I'm going to pull this create a record out. And we're going to do one more automation together, which is going to be an email notification. Okay? So I'm going to give a project the ability to have an assignee. So this is going to be a person who's responsible for the project. Okay? And when we assign someone, so we're going to assign a few people here. I'll just assign myself on everything. We want to send an email letting them know they have a new project assignment. Okay? So our next automation is going to be notify of new project. Now we're going to do the same thing where we say, hey, in the projects table, when there is an assignee, so we're going to say when an assignee is not empty, so as soon as someone's been assigned, go ahead and send an email to, we're going to access this blue plus, we're going to find the assignee, we're going to click on that, and that'll give us the email of the assignee. We're going to send it to the email of the assignee, we're going to say a new project has been assigned. And then let's give the body some information. We're going to say V, and we can use this blue plus to pull in information. So we're going to pull in the project name has been assigned to you. Please follow this link to see more details. Now, you can bring in a link here from the record right here, base record URL, and that will provide it in the email. Okay, so if we generate a preview of what this looks like, you'll see it's telling us, hello, there, there's another project that's been assigned to you. Please follow this link for more details. And they can select this link to see the project. So let's go ahead and see this in real time. I'm going to turn it on, and here we go. And then I'll hop over my email, and you can see it. So let's create a new one. This is going to be a new project. Okay. And it's going to have some information to do. And I'm going to give it an assignee. And that will trigger the email. I'm going to pop over to my Gmail here. There it is. Here it is. A new project has been assigned. Follow this link. If they follow this link, you'll see that it takes them right to the record in Airtable. Okay? So this is how to use automations, and hopefully that is exciting and not boring for you. I love it. And I have a feeling if you're watching this, you may love it as well. Okay, so we've covered a lot of grounds here. We're going to talk about one more area in order to round out your Airtable knowledge, and that is the concept of views. Okay? Now views, what is a view? Well, view is sort of a pre-filtered way of looking at the data. Okay? And so you may find that you frequently want to filter the data just to see the done projects or just to see the projects that are coming up. And so views would be great with that, so that you could sort of save those criterias that you're filtering and sort of sorting by and just come back to them whenever you want. So I'll show you a couple of ideas for this. Views, you access them through this view switcher here. And you can name them. So we're going to name our first one that we've been working in all projects. Okay. I'm going to give it dates to everything here just real quick. And you'll see that these are going to sort of follow our sorting logic that we worked out earlier. And there we go. Okay, and maybe just a couple of details here. All right, so we know that these ones are the ones that are coming up closest. We've got all projects though. Now let's say we want a view just for in progress projects. Let me show you how to do that. We're going to duplicate the view. I'm going to rename it in progress. Okay. And we're going to come up here to the filter, and when you do a filter, you're going to give it a condition, and for us we're going to say where the status is in progress. So every time I come to revisit this, I'm just going to see statuses that are in progress. And maybe for in progress, it's important that I also group this by the type. So I'll group this by the type. Okay, so you can see accounting projects, creative production, and the status. That's one way you might use a view. You might also say, okay, let's create a view. I'm going to duplicate this view, and I'm going to call this upcoming projects. Okay, I'm going to remove the filter that we were using before, and I'm going to add a new filter, which is where the days left, remember that formula we did, we're going to say where the days left is less than or equal to 30 days. So if we're within 30 days, show us the project as an upcoming project. Okay, and maybe you don't want to filter this one. The other thing you can do with this, which is nice, is you can hide the fields, and that's how it will remain. So let's say, for instance, I don't want to see anything other than the status, the due date, the type, and the percentage complete, right? I can move this percentage complete. I could drag this up. And so now you're seeing this information sort of in the way that you'd like to see it. Okay, that's how views are now. This is a grid view. We've so far only worked with the grid view. It looks like a spreadsheet. Another power of Airtable is this. You can pivot all of that data into a different view almost instantaneously once you have the grid. So this all projects view, let's turn it into a calendar. So this would be our project calendar. We're going to use our due date. And now everything that's showing up here has a corresponding record that we had created in that view, but we're now just looking at it as a calendar. And you can do some great things with customizing what shows up on the label. You can change the coloring. Let's use the coloring based on the status. And now we've got a great calendar we can look at for our projects. One other one that's common with statuses is the Kanban view. So a Kanban view allows you to establish these kind of swim lanes and turns those records into cards. So for us, maybe we want to see how status is progressing. You can see that here, and you can customize what's on the card. So I need to see the assignee and the percentage complete. Now this is looking really good, and this can be a good view to say update, for instance, drag over an in-progress project to now being done. Nice and easy. As with everything else, any change I make here, I move these to done. If you go look at this version, they're now done. Okay, so any change you make in a view flows everywhere else. The final thing you need to know, how to share information in Airtable. So if you're going to collaborate with someone internally within your company or your group, and you expect them to have access to this, you could share the entire base with them, and you would do so by clicking on the upper right hand corner here and inviting them by email. You can specify a type of access, editing information, that kind of stuff, or just read only. The other thing you can do is you can generate a link. This is a live URL, meaning anyone who visits this link, even if they don't have an Airtable account, can view the information. They can't make edits to the information, but they can view it. And what they can view is limited by what you have in the view. So these links are specific to a specific view. So if I wanted to share the all projects view, I can do that. And let's say, for instance, I didn't want to show anything but the project name and the due date. I could toggle all of that off. And when someone now enters that view, that's what they're going to see. And so just to take a look at what they would see, we'll copy this link. Go ahead and paste it here, and you'll see that when we visit this, it shows us just that subset of the information. And so that's how you can share the information you're working on and collaborate with others. So this has been a crash course. This has been a guide to the beginning fundamentals of Airtable. There is so much more to learn about. Feel free to look around in the channel to learn more advanced topics as well. Try going back through and following along, creating your own. Just get in there and start building. That's really the way to start exploring and learning, and it can be a lot of fun. So have fun with it.